Oh, hello there. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mikael, and I've got some books I want to share with you. Let me just take off my sweater here. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well this evening and feeling healthy. You may notice today I'm wearing my medical scrubs. I do work in the ER. I'm an EMT. And I just want to wish everyone a lot of health. I work the night shift, so I'm there for you at night. I want to start out, of course, by thanking everyone for lending me their time and lending me their ears and sharing this with people. I'm very happy to be lending you my time and my voice. Of course, I'm also happy to be sharing with you guys some very special books, which I'll introduce in a moment. I'm wearing the scrubs today because I just want you guys, I want everyone out there to know that I'm wishing good health to people from a good place, and I'm proactively trying to help people in the community. I think everyone focusing on health right now is great, and I hope that we get health care guaranteed for everyone out of this situation so that at least things won't be as bad in the future. And then, of course, I want to invite everyone to share this video. If you know anyone who you think might need a story read to them to chill them out in the evening, please share this story with them. I've got a couple very special selections. You know I love reading about California natural history, native stories, bringing awareness to the names of things in the land and the stories that have been told in this land for a long time, so we can appreciate our great state here. But they're good for everyone. So let's see what we got today. I'm going to start off with another story from Inland Whale. This story I think it's from the Mojave, but this book has a nice collection of Native Californian stories. Then we're going to read another entry from Ecotopia by Ernest Callenbach. We read a little bit. This is just in case California breaks off from the United States, along with Oregon and Washington, and focuses radically on the environment. It's really, really charming and funny. We have also a book we read a little bit of before, 15 Poets of the Aztec World. It's edited by Miguel Leon-Portilla. I think I'm going to try and read from two authors here. Their prose is beautiful. It's some of the best poetry in the world. I think I promised this last time, but we didn't get to much of it. We'll read some excerpts from the Book of Fantasy, edited by Jorge Luis Borges, but not necessarily his stories, but there's some good stuff in here. And then last but certainly not least, we'll read my favorite story. It's nice and short, from the Legends of the Yosemite Miwok. So, without further ado, everyone, let's get to a story from the Inland Whale. This story is called Butterfly Man. And there's an illustration of someone with a butterfly here. It was springtime along the river, and Tolowee woman was restless and lonely. Tolowee man was downriver spearing salmon. She knew that when he came home, he would join the other men in the sweat house. This was the time of spring of the deer drive, the time when a woman is unclean and is avoided by her husband if he is taking part of the drive. Tolowee man must keep himself absolutely pure now, for he was one of those who would be impersonating the deer, and this is a dangerous thing to do at best. This was the time for a good wife to stay indoors and to help see that no taboo was broken. Tolowee woman was a good wife, and she remembered that spring is also the time when the wild iris blooms in the hills. And Tolowee woman was wary of women's gossip and women's voices, so she settled her basket hat straight on her head and let herself quietly out of her house by way of the low front passage. She took care not to jiggle or disturb the baby in its cradle board on her back. Once outside, she stood erect, gazed briefly up and down the river, and then turned away from it and walked up into the hills. The sun was bright and hot. After walking for some time, Tolowee woman, out of breath, slipped the carrying strap from her forehead and put the cradle board in the shade of a manzanita bush and sat down to rest. As she sat, a butterfly fluttered softly by. It brushed the baby's arm, causing him to laugh and try to touch it. It brushed Tolowee woman's cheek, and she too laughed and tried to touch it. It settled for a moment on a branch of the manzanita bush, and Tolowee woman, laughing again, stretched quickly forward to cover it with her seed basket. But it fluttered on to the next bush, just out of her reach. She got up from the ground following and tried to capture it. She wanted this butterfly, as she had not wanted anything for a long, long time. It was large and strong flying as butterflies rarely are, and it was very beautiful, with wing bands black as the mussel shell and stripes scarlet as the woodpecker's crest. The butterfly was so little ahead of her that each new step or reach seemed to be the one that would capture it, but always it kept its free fluttering way, just ahead, just out of reach. Nor was it flying at random, for its start and stop course was leading her ever up and back, farther into the hills, farther from the river. Tolowee woman looked back at the baby, sleepy and comfortable in the shade of the manzanita bush. She had come a long way from him. The butterfly would tire soon now. She would make a last try for it over this next hill and take it back to the baby. But the butterfly did not tire, nor did it allow itself to be captured. Tolowee woman became so intent on possessing it that through the long afternoon it led her on and on. Her buckskin skirt was dirty and torn from the thorny bushes. Her cap was brushed from her head, and she did not stop to pick it up. And the heavy strings of the polished dentalium and abalone shells about her neck were broken, scattered, and lost. At last, as the sun was setting, and far inland among the hills she did not know, Tolowee woman sank exhausted to the ground. The butterfly turned at once and fluttered back to her. It came and settled down beside her. In the dusk, she saw that it was become a swift and graceful man, naked save for the butterfly girdle encircling his waist, his long hair held in a black and red headband. Together they passed the night, Tolowee woman and the butterfly man. In the morning, butterfly man asked her, "You wish to go with me?" She answered, "Yes, I do." Then he said to her, "That is good. One more day's traveling will bring us to my land, and there we shall live. But it is a long and dangerous way, oh, my wife. We must cross the valley of butterflies, and they will try to take you from me. Will you do as I say, that I may lead you safely through?" She promised to do as he told her. He said, "Follow close behind me. Step where I step. Hold tight with both your hands on my girdle. Do not let go, even for a moment. And do not look at any butterfly until we are out of the valley. Obey me for this time, and you shall forever be safe. Remember, I lose my power to protect you if you haven't your hands on my girdle." They started off, butterfly man in the lead, Tolowee woman following. She grasped the girdle firmly in both her hands, and she looked only at the ground. In this manner they came to the valley of the butterflies, and traveled some distance into it. It was rough underfoot, and butterfly man set a straight, fast course down, across, up. Butterflies hovered on the rocks over which they had to step. Butterflies caught against their legs and in their hair and fluttered before their faces. The air of the valley seemed to be entirely filled with butterflies. For a long time, Tolowee woman remembered to keep her hand in the girdle and her eyes on the pathless way underfoot. But then a butterfly, all black, larger even than butterfly man had been, and shining as the crow, hovered before her. He hovered just above her breast in the line of her downcast eyes and settled for a long moment on her lips. Then he flew slowly away. She gasped with the excitement of his beauty. Her eyes followed his flight, and she took one hand off the girdle and reached greedily for him. He was gone. But at once 100, 1,000 others danced before her, against her eyes and cheek and mouth. They were black and pure white, and pale gold, and swamp green, and iris purple. She wanted them all, and so she let go of her hold on Butterfly Man's girdle and reached for them with both her hands. Not one could she catch. Butterfly Man did not stop to look back. She kept him in sight for a long time, but as she clutched ever more wildly at one and then another, she fell far, far behind him. She ran after this butterfly and that one, here and there, up and down, stumbling, desperate, at random, always reaching for another one, and always missing it. Her hair was unbraided and tangled. Her skirt kept catching in the bushes and holding her back. She untied it and threw it away. Her moccasins were in shreds. Naked except for her bark apron, disheveled, obsessed, she continued her hopeless chase. Butterfly Man was now gone. He was across the valley and in his own land. Toluene Woman followed. One butterfly and then another, and on and on and on. And then her heart went away. And this was the end of Toluene Woman. What a powerful story. I think one easy lesson that we can take from this story is if we keep grasping after butterflies and not keeping an eye on what's in front of us, we might end up getting lost. Reminds me of the TLC song, Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls. I think all of you remember that. Similar sentiment, but with much deeper echoes, because this woman completely left her family behind. This book and other ones I want to share with you all are available from, I think, Heyday Press and other small booksellers. I'm going to share the link right here because if y'all like these books and want to read some at home for yourself, please check out this local bookseller. Let's set this book down. And let's move on to our next selection here. I'm excited to read more of this. This is Ecotopia. We learned last time that this reporter was assigned to do a review of the country of Ecotopia, which is California, Oregon, and Washington, which broke away from the United States 20 years ago. They are radically environmental, and they apparently have high-speed trains from Tahoe to San Francisco on which you can smoke weed. We're getting about to the point where the journalist is going to arrive in San Francisco. So this is from his journal. May 4th, general impression. A lot of Ecotopians look like old-time Westerners. Gold Rush characters come to life. God knows we have plenty of freaky-looking people in New York, but their freakishness is self-conscious, campy, theatrical, a way of showing off. The Ecotopians are almost Dickensian, often strange enough, but not crazy-looking or sordid, as the hippies of the 60s were. Fanciful hats and hairdos, jackets, vests, leggings, tights. So help me, I think I even saw a codpiece. Either that or the guy was supernaturally endowed. There's a lot of embroidery and decorations made of small shells or feathers, and patchwork. Cloth must be terribly scarce. They go to such lengths to reuse it. And their manners are even more unsettling. On the streets, there are electrical moments when women stare at me directly in the eyes. So far, I've looked away. But what would happen if I held contact? People seem to be very loose and playful with each other, as if they had endless time on their hands to explore whatever possibilities might come up. There's none of the implicit threat of open criminal violence that pervades our public spaces, but there's an awful lot of strong emotion, willfully expressed. The peace of the train ride was broken several times by shouted arguments and insults. People have an insolent kind of curiosity that often leads to tiffs. It's as if they have lost a sense of anonymity which enables us to live together in large numbers. You can't, therefore, approach an ecotopian functionary as we do. The ecotopian at the train ticket window simply wouldn't tolerate being spoken to in my usual way. He asked me what I thought he was, a ticket dispensing machine? In fact, he won't give you the ticket unless you deal with him as a real person. And he insists on dealing with you, asking questions, making remarks to which he expects a sincere reaction, and shouting if he doesn't get it. But most of such sound and fury seems to signify nothing. There may be dangerous lunatics among the harmless ones, but I haven't seen any yet. Just hope I can preserve my own sanity. And now here's an article, The Streets of Ecotopia's Capital. San Francisco, May 5th. As I emerged from the train terminal into the streets, I had little idea what to expect from this city, which had once proudly boasted of rising from its own ashes after a terrible earthquake and fire. San Francisco was once known as America's favorite city and had an immense appeal to tourists. Its dramatic hills and bridges, its picturesque cable cars, and its sophisticated yet relaxed people had drawn visitors who returned again and again. Would I find that it still deserves its reputation as an elegant and civilized place? I checked my bag and set out to explore a bit. The first shock hit me the moment I stepped into the street. There was a strange hush over everything. I expected to encounter something at least a little like the excited bustle of our cities, cars honking, taxis swooping, clots of people pushing about in the hurry of human life, urban life. What I found when I had gotten over my surprise at the quiet was that Market Street, once a mighty boulevard striking through the city down to the waterfront, has become a mall planted with thousands of trees. The street itself, on which electric taxis, minibuses, and delivery carts purr along, has shrunk to a 2-lane affair. The remaining space, which is huge, is occupied by bicycle lanes, fountains, sculptures, kiosks, and absurd little gardens surrounded by benches. Over it all hangs the most sinister quiet, punctuated by the whir of bicycles and the cries of children. There is even the occasional song of a bird, unbelievable as that may seem in the capital city's crowded Main Street. Littered here and there are large conical-roofed pavilions, with a kiosk in the center selling papers, comic books, magazines, fruit juices, and snacks. Also cigarettes. The Ecotopians have not managed to stamp out smoking. The pavilion turns out to be stops on the minibus system, and people wait there out of the rain. These buses are comical battery-driven contraptions, resembling the antique cable cars that San Franciscans were once so fond of. They are driverless and are steered and stopped by an electronic gadget that follows wires buried in the street. A safer bumper stops them in case someone fails to get out of the way. To enable people to get on and off quickly during the 15 seconds at the bus stop, the floor is only a few inches above the level of the ground. The wheels are at the extreme ends of the vehicle. Rows of seats face outwards, so on a short trip, you simply sit down momentarily or stand and hang on one of the hand grips. In bad weather, fringed fabric roofs can be extended outwards to provide more shelter. These buses creep along at 10 miles an hour, but they come every 5 minutes or so. They charge no fare. When I took an experimental ride on one, I asked the fellow passengers about this, and they said the minibuses are paid for in the same way as the streets, out of the general tax funds. Smiling, he added that to have a driver on board to collect fares would cost more than fares could produce. This is true, especially with ticket checkers. Like many ecotopians, he tended to babble and spell out the entire economic rationale for the minibus system, almost as if he was trying to sell it to me. I thanked him, and after a few blocks, jumped off. The bucolic atmosphere of the new San Francisco can perhaps best be seen in the fact that down Market Street and some other streets, creeks now run. These had earlier, in great expense, been put into huge culverts underground. as was usual in cities. Ecotopians spent even more to bring them above ground again. So now on this major boulevard, you may see a charming series of little falls with water gurgling and splashing, and channels lined with rocks, trees, bamboos, ferns. There even seem to be minnows in the water, though how they are kept safe from marauding children and cats, I cannot guess. Despite the quiet, the streets are full of people, though not in Manhattan densities. Some foot traffic has been displaced to lacy bridges, which connect one skyscraper to another, sometimes 15 or 20 stories up. Since practically the whole street area is a sidewalk, nobody worries about obstructions or about potholes, which, as they develop in the pavement, are planted with flowers. I came across a group of street musicians playing Bach with a harpsichord and a half dozen other instruments. There are vendors of food pushing gaily colored carts and offering hot snacks, chestnuts, ice cream, maybe like some elote, churros. Once I even saw a juggler and a magician team working a crowd of children. It reminded me of some medieval movie. And there are many strollers, gawkers, and loiterers, people without visible business who simply take the streets for granted as an extension of their living rooms. Yet despite so many unoccupied people, the Ecotopian streets seem ridiculously lacking in security gates, doormen, guards, or other precautions against crime. And no one seems to feel our need for automobiles to provide protection in moving from place to place. I had noticed on the train that Ecotopian clothes tend to be very loose, with bright colors striving to make up what is lacking in style and cut. This impression is confirmed now that I have observed thousands of San Franciscans. The typical Ecotopian man wears nondescript trousers, even denim is common, perhaps from nostalgia for American fashions of the pre-secession decades. Well, the denim was made here, huh? Topped with an often hideous shirt, sweater, poncho, or jacket. Despite the usually chilly weather, sandals are common among both sexes. The women often wear pants also, but loose flowing gypsy-like skirts they're more usual. A few people wear outlandish, skin-tight garments which look like diving wetsuits, but are woven from some fabric unknown to me. They may be members of some special group, as their attire is so unusual. Leathers and furs seem to be favorite materials. They are used for purses, pouches, pants, and jackets. Children wear miniature versions of adult clothing. There seem to be no special outfits for them. Ecotopians setting out to go more than a block or two usually pick up one of the sturdy white-painted bicycles that lie about the streets by the hundreds and are available for free to all. Dispersed by the movement of citizens during the day and night, they are returned by night crews to the places where they will be needed the next day. When I remarked to a friendly pedestrian that this system must be a joy to thieves and vandals, he denied it heatedly. He then put a case, which may not be totally far-fetched, that it is cheaper to lose a few bicycles than to provide more taxis or minibuses. Also true. Ecotopians, I am discovering, spout statistics on such questions with reckless abandon. They have a way of introducing social costs into their calculations, which inevitably involves a certain amount of optimistic guesswork. It would be interesting to confront such information with one of the hard-headed experts from our auto and highway industries, who would, of course, be horrified by the Ecotopians' abolition of cars. As I walked about, I noticed that the downtown area was strangely overpopulated with children and their parents, besides some people who apparently worked in the offices and shops. My questions to passerby, which were answered with surprising patience, revealed what is perhaps the most astonishing fact I have yet encountered in Ecotopia. The great downtown skyscrapers, once the headquarters of far-flung corporations, have been turned into apartments. Further inquiries will be needed to get a clear picture of this development, but the story I heard repeatedly on the streets today is that the former outlying residential areas have largely been abandoned. Many three-story buildings had, in any case, been heavily damaged by the earthquake 9 years ago. Thousands of cheap-built houses in newer districts, scornfully labeled ticky-tacky boxes, you all will remember that song by my informants, have been sacked of their wiring, glass, and hardware and bulldozed away. The residents now live downtown in buildings that contain not only apartments but also nurseries, grocery stores, and restaurants, as well as the shops and offices on the ground floor. Although the streets still have an American look, it is annoyingly difficult to identify things in Ecotopia. Only very small signs are permitted on the fronts of buildings. Street signs are few and hard to spot, mainly attached to buildings on corners. Finally, however, I navigated my way back to the station, retrieved my suitcase, and located a nearby hotel, which had been recommended as suitable for an American, but still likely to give me some taste of how Ecotopians live. This worthy establishment lived up to its reputation by being almost impossible to find, but it is comfortable enough and will serve as my survival base here. Boy. Like everything in Ecotopia, my room is full of contradictions. It is comfortable, if a little old-fashioned by our standards. The bed is atrocious. It lacks springs, being just foam, rubber overboard, yet it is covered with a luxurious down comforter. There is a large work table equipped with a hot plate and teapot. Its surface is plain, unvarnished wood, and many mysterious stains, but on it stands a small, sleek picture phone. Despite their aversion to many modern devices, the Ecotopians have some that are even better than ours. Their picture phones, for instance, though they have to be connected to a television screen, are far easier to use than ours and have much better picture quality. Shout out to everyone staying connected through Zoom right now. That's our picture screens at the moment. My toilet has a tank high overhead of a type that went out in the United States around 1945, operated by a pull chain with a quaint carved handle. The toilet paper must be some ecological abomination. It is coarse and plain. But the bathtub is unusually large and deep, like the tubs still used in deluxe Japanese inns. It is made of highly aromatic wood. I used the picture phone to confirm advanced arrangements for a visit tomorrow to the Minister of Food, with whom I shall begin to investigate the ecotopian claims of stable state ecological systems, about which so much controversy has raged. Let's remember that phrase, stable state ecological systems. Now back to his journal, May 5th. Maybe they have gone back to the Stone Age. In the early evening, I saw a group of hunters carrying fancy bow and arrows jump off a minibus on which they had loaded a recently killed deer. Two of them hoisted it up, suspended it on a long stick they carried on their shoulders, and began marching along the street. A large hunting dog padded along with them, the first pet I've seen in Ecotopia, where animals are evidently left as wild as possible, and people seem to feel no need of them for company. A crowd gathered to watch them. Little boys hung around excitedly. The hunters stopped near me for a rest, and also, I suspect, to allow people to admire their kill. One of them caught my eye and must have seen disgust in it. He rubbed his hand over the deer's wound, still damp with blood, and then ran his finger across my cheek, as if to implicate me in the hunt. I jumped back, shocked, and the crowd laughed in what seemed an ugly way. Later, talking with some of the people there, I learned that the group had been hunting just outside town, where apparently deer are numerous, and they actually are in a lot of the hills around San Francisco, here in the East Bay as well. Later, talking with some of the people, here we go. The hunters looked savage enough. Long knives, beards, rough clothes. But they were evidently quite ordinary citizens off on a hunt. The deer would be butchered and the meat divided. Game is said to be a source of considerable meat in the Ecotopian diet. It is prized for its spiritual qualities. I think we may have heard similar things in the Native American stories. And the one we just read, actually. Whether such practices are forced upon them by scarcities or are the results of some deliberate throwback policy, wink? I don't know yet. But the scene in the gathering dusk was ghoulish enough. Most Ecotopian streets are pitch dark at night. Evidently, their power policies have caused them to curtail night lighting almost entirely. Can't tell why this doesn't lead to the crime panic it would bring among us. I've asked people whether they feel safe at night, and they reply, yes, without hesitation. They claim they can see well enough, and they turn their conversation onto something irrelevant. How bicycle lights look, bobbing through the night like fireflies, or how fine it is to be able to see the stars even in the city. Dumb things like that. Good thing they don't have cars, or the accident rates would be spectacular. A little trouble with the maid last night when she thought I took liberties. We had had a conversation about my picking some flowers on the street and bringing them up to the room. Evidently, Ecotopians don't pick flowers, preferring to enjoy them where they grow, and she rather playfully set me straight on this. Maybe she was just trying to be friendly, but seemed to be giving me the eye, yet wouldn't play. Well, sublimation makes the pen grow stronger. No, it makes me wish I could import Francine for a couple days. I like dressing well, but my New York clothing were making me stick out here. So I picked up a new wardrobe. Dark green serape with a hood, soft but still tightly woven. I am told it will keep off the rain and probably make me smell like a wet sheep. A couple of loose shirts in suitably gaudy colors, a vest, a floppy suede jacket, two pairs of denim pants. Also a pair of heavy shoes. My elegant Italian street shoes clearly won't go here. I look in the mirror and laugh. If I rang Francine's doorbell in this outfit, she'd call the police. One game they've never played. I'm just going to skip that one there. From what I could determine on my brief shopping spree, the clothes here do not include any nylon, Orlon, Dacron, or other synthetics. I need a couple of shirts, and the drip dry kind, the incredulous clerk. You mean some kind of synthetic fiber shirt? We haven't sold them here in 20 years. Followed by a lecture to the effect that too much electric power and water are required in the production of synthetics, and also they can't be recycled. I noticed some garments with labels proudly declaring they were reused wool. Both fabrics and garments all domestic made, and the prices seemed sky high. Don't like the fetishistic avoidance of synthetics, but I had forgotten how nice a good cotton shirt feels to the skin. This quality is emphasized by the manufacturers. They make a point that the fabrics have been washed several times before being offered for sale. Well, doesn't that sound lovely, everyone? I want to look at when this book was written, because this really seems like where we are now. 1975. So where does that put us? That's 45 years ago. And someone pointed out last time, there seem to be describing a lot of how California is now. May have been then, but what we can keep striving for is be in a peaceful state with responsibility for the land and respect for each other. What's up, Shannon? That's right. There was a quote from Shakespeare's Hamlet, Sound and Fury, in here, signifying nothing. Of course, the author thinks he's clever, but we're finding out that he is a little bit prejudiced. And shout out to my family who I met with on Zoom, to my little cousins, Gwen, Reese, and Amelia. I hope that y'all are watching and enjoying this. In case any of my friends think this is silly, it's for the children, but also for you, so enjoy. Let's get into some Aztec poetry. I'm excited about this. These poems are incredible. Let me drink a little bit of water. This book actually includes some analysis of the poetry and some background on the poets. I'm not sure how interested people are for that, but if you'd like, I can read some of that after the poem if anyone wants. It also actually includes the Latin-sized Quechua, or not Quechua, Nahuatl. Anyways, here we go. This is Cuacuauhtzin. Oh, wait. Sad Song of Cuacuauhtzin. My heart craves the flowers, that they be in my hands. With songs I am saddened. I only try to compose songs on the earth. I, Cuacuauhtzin, with anxiety I desire the flowers, that they be in my hands, for I am dispossessed. Where would we go, that we never have to die? Though I be precious stone, though I be gold, I will be dissolved. There in the crucible melted down, I have only my life. I, Cuacuauhtzin, am dispossessed. You make resound your kettle drum of jade, your red and blue conch shell. You, Yoyoncin, painting one. Now he has come. Now the singer has risen. For a short time be happy. Come and be present, those with saddened heart. Now he has come. Now the singer has risen. Open the corolla of your heart. Let it tread the lofty heights. You have hated me. You have marked me for death. Now I go to his house. I will perish. Perhaps because of me you will weep. Because of me you will be sad. You, my friend, but now I will go. Now I am going to his house. Only this my heart tells, I will not return. Never will come back to earth. Now I will go. I am going to his house. Only useless effort. Enjoy, my friends. Should we not be happy? Should we not have pleasure, my friends? I will take with me the beautiful flowers, the beautiful songs. Never I do it in springtime. I alone am in need. Alone am I. Cuacuauhtzin. Should we not enjoy, my friends? I will take with me the beautiful flowers, the beautiful songs. A very interesting image to go along with it. So this poem, like a lot of the other Aztec poems, points to our mortality, but in pointing to our mortality, invites us to enjoy life. I know everyone here joining me is enjoying life. Let's see. I have one more here marked out. I don't think I have seen this one or read this one. This is called Song of Nezahualpilli during the war with Huexotzinco. I am intoxicated. Intoxicated is my heart. Day is dawning. Already the zacuan bird is singing above the enclosure of shields, above the enclosure of darts. Be merry, you, Tlacahuepan, you, our neighbor of shaven head, like the Cuacuauhtzin with shaven head, drunk with liquor of flowery waters, there at the edge of the water of the birds, shaven head. The jade and plumes of Quetzal with stones have been torn down, my great lords, those intoxicated with death, there on the ground planted in water, at the edge of the water, the Mexica in the land of the cactus. The eagle screams, the jaguar howls, and you, O my prince, Makwil Mali Nali, here in the region of smoke, in the land of red color, bravely the Mexica are fighting. I am intoxicated, I, Huexotzinco, I of the flowery shaven hair. Again and again I drink the flowering liquor. Let them pass the precious flowery nectar. Oh, my son, you, young man and strong, I grow pale. Where the divine waters spread out, there they are inflamed with passion. The Mexica are intoxicated with the flowery liquor of the gods. I remember now the Chichimec. Only for this am I saddened. For this I moan. I, Nezahualpilli, now I remember him. Alone he is there, where the flowers of war open the corollas. I remember him, for this now I weep. Above the bells, Cuacuauhtzin within the waters rejoices. And this, Ixtliquechahuac, achieves renown, takes possession of the quetzal plumage. The Huexotzinco takes the turquoises. Before the face of the water, within the battle, under the spell of water and fire, Ixtliquechahuac rises up in fury. With this he achieves renown. He takes possession of the quetzal plumage. He takes the turquoises. The bird of the fine plumage is flying. Cuacuauhtzin, my possessor of flowers. Like rabbits, he pursues them, the strong youth. The Huexotzinco in the land of the cactus. Within the waters they sing, the divine flowers call out. They are intoxicated. They shout, the princes who look like precious birds, the Huexotzicos in the land of the cactus. Our fathers are intoxicated, the intoxication of strength. Begin the dance. To his house have gone those with the spoiled flowers, those who had plumage shields, those who guarded the heights, those who took prisoners alive, now they dance. Vomiting blood, they go, the owners of the spoiled flowers, those of the flowery shields. Stained with the blood, my prince goes, our yellow lord of the Huexotzinco, the one of the dark sapote skirt. Tlacahuepan is exalted, where one somehow exists. It's heavy. With the flower of the liquor of war, my prince has become intoxicated, our yellow lord of the Huexotzinco. Cuacuauhtzin is bathed with the liquor of war. Together they go to where one somehow exists. With divine water, the one of painted torso, my prince, who as Nezahualpilli behaves. There the Huexotzinco are intoxicated with the shield's flowery liquor. A dance is performed in Atlixco. Ooh. Make resound your trumpets of tigers. The eagles scream upon the circular stone where the gladiatorial fight takes place. The old men are leaving. There the Huexotzinco are intoxicated with the shield's flowery liquor. A dance is performed in Atlixco. Make resound your turquoise drums, inebriated cactus with flower water. Your necklace of flowers, your pendant of heron feathers. You of the painted body, now they hear it, the birds of flowery heads. Accompanying the strong youth, the owner of the shield of the tiger, who came back. My heart is sad, I am young Nezahualpilli. I look for my captains, the Lord is gone, the flowering quetzal, the young and strong warrior has gone. The blue of the sky is his house. Perhaps Cuacuauhtzin and Acapipillol will come to drink the flowery liquor here where I weep. It's a powerful poem, I believe written by a warrior poet, it seems like, talking about the ups and downs of battle. But the language is just incredible from these Aztec poets. So please look them up. I know there's a lot of free poetry online. Compared to a lot of classic poetry from other parts in the world, I find that this poetry to be very compelling and deeply relevant still to the modern day here in California, more so than when I read Greek poetry, for instance. I'm going to set that aside. I believe we have time now for the Book of Fantasy. This is edited by Jorge Luis Borges, Silvina Ocampo, and A. Bioy Casares. I think I marked a few things off here that I want to read. So let's see what we got. I don't know about that one. It's a very old book here. Okay. This one will maybe contrast a little bit with Ecotopia. This story is called The Idle City, and it was written by Lord Dunsany, otherwise known as Edward John Morton Drax Plunkett. He was an Irish author, and it looks like he fought in a couple wars and was writing sometime around the turn of the last century, 100 years ago. So this story is called The Idle City. There was once a city which was an idle city, wherein men told vain tales. And it was that city's custom to tax all men that would enter in, with the toll of some idle story in the gate. So all men paid to the watchers in the gate the toll of an idle story, and passed in the city unhindered and unhurt. And in a certain hour of the night, when the king of that city arose and went pacing swiftly up and down the chamber of his sleeping, and called upon the name of the dead queen, then would the watchers fasten up the gate, and go into the chamber of the king, and sitting on the floor would tell him all the tales that they had gathered. And listening to them, some calmer mood would come upon the king. Listening still, he would lie down again, and at last fall fast asleep. And all the watchers silently would arise and steal away from the chamber. A while ago wandering, I came to the gate of that city. And even as I came, a man stood up to pay his toll to the watchers. They were seated cross-legged on the ground between him and the gate, and each one held a spear. Near him 2 other travelers sat on the warm sand waiting. And the man said, "Now the city of Nombros forsook the worship of gods and turned towards God. So the gods threw their cloaks over their faces and strode away from the city, and going into the haze among the hills, passed through the trunks of the olive groves into the sunset. But when they had already left the earth, they turned and looked through the gleaming folds of the twilight for the last time at their city. And they looked half in anger and half in regret, and then turned and went away forever. But they sent back a death, who bore a scythe, saying to it, 'Slay half the city that forsook us, but half of them spare alive, that they may yet remember their old forsaken gods.' But God sent a destroying angel to show that he was God, saying unto him, 'Go down and show the strength of mine arm unto that city, and slay half of the dwellers therein, yet spare half of them, that they may know that I am God.'" Jeez, it's a tough situation. And at once the destroying angel put his hand on his sword, and the sword came out of the scabbard with a deep breath, like the breath of a broad woodman takes out before the first blow against a giant oak. Thereat the angel pointed his arms downward, and bending his head between them, fell forward from heaven's edge, and the spring of his ankles shot him downwards with his wings unfurled behind him. So he went slanting earthward through the evening with his sword stretched out before him. And he was like a javelin that some hunter hath hurled, that returneth again to the earth. But just before he touched it, he lifted his head and spread his wings with the under feathers forward, and alighted by the bank of the broad Flavro, which divides the city of Nombros. And down the bank of the Flavro he fluttered low, like to a hawk over a new cut cornfield, when the light creature of the corn were shelterless, and at the same time down the other bank the death from the gods went mowing. At once they saw each other, and the angel glared at the death, and the death leered back at him, and the flames in the eyes of the angel illuminated the red glare and mist that lay in the hollows of the sockets of death. Suddenly they fell on one another, sword and scythe. The angel ruptured the temples of the gods and set them over them the sign of God, and led them into the ceremonies and sacrifices of the gods. And all the while the centuries slipped quietly by, going down the Flavro seaward. And now some worship God in the temple of the gods, and others worship the gods in the temple of God. and still the angel hath not returned again to the rejoicing choirs, and still the death hath not gone back to die with the dead gods. But all through Nombros they fight up and down, and still on each side of the Flavro the city lives. And the watchers at the gate said, Enter in. Then another traveler rode up and said, Solemnly between Huexotzinco and Nitkrana the huge gray clouds came floating, and those great mountains, heavenly Huexotzinco and Nitkrana, the king of peaks, greeted them, calling them brothers. And the clouds were glad of their greeting, for they meet with companions seldom in the lonely heights of the sky. But the vapors of the evening said unto the earth mist, What are those shapes that dare move above us, and to go where Nitkrana is, and Huexotzinco? And the earth mist said in answer unto the vapors of the evening, It is only an earth mist that has become mad, and has left the warm and comfortable earth, and has in his madness thought that his place is with Huexotzinco and Nitkrana. Once, said the vapors of the evening, there were clouds, but this was many, many days ago, as our forefathers have said. Perhaps the mad one thinks he is the clouds. Then spake the earthworms from the warm deeps of the mud, saying, O earth mist, thou art indeed the clouds, and there are no clouds but thou. And as for Huexotzinco and Nitkrana, I cannot see them, and therefore they are not high, and there are no mountains in the world but those that I cast up every morning out of the deeps of the mud. And the earth mist and the vapors of the evening were glad at the voice of the earthworms, and looking earthward believed what they had said. And indeed it is better to be as the earth mist, and to keep close to the warm mud at night, and to hear the earthworms' comfortable speech, and not to be a wanderer in the cheerless heights, but to leave the mountains alone, with their vast aspect over the cities of men, and from the whispers that they hear at the evening of unknown distant gods. And the watchers in the gate said, Enter in. Then a man stood up who came out of the west, and he told a western tale. He said, There is a road in Rome that runs through an ancient temple that once the god had loved. It runs along the top of a great wall, and the floor of the temple lies far down beneath it, of marble, pink and white. Upon the temple floor I counted the number of 13 hungry cats. Sometimes, they said among themselves, it was the gods that lived here. Sometimes it was men, and now it's cats. So let us enjoy the sun on the hot marble before another people comes. For it was at that hour, a warm afternoon, when my fancy is able to hear the silent voices. And the fearful leanness of all those 13 cats moved me to go into a neighboring fish shop, and there to buy a quantity of fishes. Then I returned and threw them all over the railing at the top of the great wall, and they fell for 30 feet and hit the sacred marble with a smack. Now in any other town in Rome, or in the minds of any other cat, the sight of fishes falling out of the heaven had surely excited wonder. They rose slowly, and all stretched themselves, and then they came leisurely towards the fishes. It is only a miracle, they said in their hearts, and the watcher in the gate said, Enter in. All right. Proudly and slowly as they spoke, drew up to them a camel, whose rider sought for entrance to the city. His face shone with the sunset, by which for long he had steered for the city's gates. Of him they demanded a toll, whereat he spoke to his camel, and the camel roared and kneeled, and the man descended from him. And the man unwrapped from the many silks a box of diverse metals wrought by the Japanese. And on the lid of it were figures of men who gazed from some shore at an isle of the inland sea. This he showed to the watchers, and when they had seen it, said, It has seemed to me that these speak to each other thus. Behold now, O Ojni, the dear one of the sea, the little mother sea that hath no storms. She goeth out from Oojni singing a song, and she returneth singing over her sands. Little is Oojni in the lap of the sea, and scarce to be perceived by wandering ships. White sails have never wafted her legends afar. They are told not by bearded wanderers of the sea. Her fireside tales are known not to the north, and dragons of China have not heard of them, nor that ride on the elephants through India. Men tell the tales, and the smoke ariseth upwards. The smoke departeth, and the tales are told. Oojni is not a name among the nations. She is not known of where the merchants meet. She is not spoken of by alien lips. Indeed, but Oojni is little among the isles, yet she is loved by those that know her coasts and her inland places hidden from the sea. Without glory, without fame, without wealth, Oojni is greatly loved by a little people, and by a few, yet not by few, for all her dead still love her, and oft by night come whispering through her woods. Who could forget Oojni even among the dead? For here in Oojni, wot you, are homes of men, and gardens, and golden temples of gods, and sacred places inshore from the sea, and many murmurous woods. And there is a path that winds over the hills to go into the mysterious holy lands, where dance by night the spirits of the woods, or sing unseen in the sunlight. And no one goes into these holy lands, for who that love Oojni would rob her of her mysteries, and the curious aliens come not. Indeed, but we love Oojni, though she is so little. She is a little mother of our race, and the kindly nurse of all seafaring birds. And behold, even now caressing her, the gentle fingers of Mother Sea, whose dreams are afar with that old wanderer ocean. And yet let us forget not Fusiyama, for he stands manifest over clouds and sea, misty below, and vague and indistinct, but clear above all the isles to watch. The ships make all their journeys in his sight. The nights and the days go by him like the wind. The summers and winters under him flicker and fade. The lives of men pass quietly here and hence, and Fusiyama watches there and knows. And the watchers in the gate said, "Enter in." And I too would have told them a tale, very wonderful and very true, one that I had told in many cities, which as yet had no believers. But now the sun had set, and the brief twilight gone, and ghostly silences were rising from far and darkening hills. A stillness hung over that city's gate, and the great silence of the solemn night was more acceptable to the watchers in the gate than any sound of man. Therefore they beckoned to us, and motioned with the hands that we should pass untaxed into the city, and softly we went up over the sand, and between the high rock pillars of the gate, and a deep stillness settled among the watchers, and the stars over them twinkled undisturbed. For how short a while man speaks, and withal how vainly, and for how long he is silent. Only the other day I met a king in Thebes who had been silent already for 4,000 years. Very interesting story, very beautiful. The stories have an idleness to them, but something in telling the stories and the beauty of the storytelling makes this story worthwhile. Again, this story is told as I'm telling a bedtime story out of a bedtime story of idle stories. I'm sure Borges would be really happy about all that meta-ness going on. On another kind of funny note, that story had several sort of typos. I know that that's technically the copy editor's issue, but the fact that Borges is the editor on this makes me want to blame him. If he does have anything to do with that, maybe it was intentional. So we're coming to the end of Volume 5 of Quarantine Bedtime Storytime. Thank you, everyone, again for being here and listening, lending me your ears and your time. This is also a great time while you're listening to do other favorite hobbies that are a little bit more lo-fi. My wonderful partner, Katie, whose house we're in, has been sketching as I've been reading. And that is a great activity to do while someone is reading aloud. Allows your imagination to go with the literature, but it also allows you to sort of explore your own imagination along with it. I want to encourage everyone out there to get themselves a blank notebook. If they're looking at buying books, a lot of these booksellers, independent booksellers, also sell notebooks. You should have something to jot down ideas in, sketch some things, just a little home for your imagination. So, as usual, I want to read with a very important story attributed to the Yosemite Miwok, otherwise known as the Awanichi. Yosemite was a big meeting place for different tribes. I believe Mano, Paiute, Miwok, Yokut all went there for trade and to enjoy it because, well, it was probably more beautiful then than it is now. So this story may have been popular in a lot of California, and I'm hoping that it becomes popular again. Before I read the story, though, let me just give the details of this book. It's called Legends of the Yosemite Miwok. It has beautiful illustrations. It's compiled by Frank LaPena, Craig D. Bates, and Stephen P. Medley. And it's put out by the Yosemite Association for Yosemite National Park. I know that some of the benefits of this group go to helping to maintain and even enhance the indigenous culture that still exists in Yosemite Valley. I believe the Miwoks are opening up a village right now for themselves after a long time, the descendants of the people who lived in Yosemite Valley before. So that's very exciting. For some national park land to be going back to the people who took care of it for so long before the park rangers. This story is called The Greed of Hisik, the skunk, a beautiful drawing of a dancing skunk. So Hisik the skunk and his wife had a daughter who, when she grew up, married Uwell the gray fox. Gray fox was a good hunter, and he and Skunk, who was chief, often hunted together. Not far from Skunk's home were two high hills standing side by side. In the narrow gap between them ran the trail of Sokoi the elk. One day, Skunk told Gray Fox to hide in the narrow place while he went down to the plain to drive up the elk. So Gray Fox hid there, and Skunk went down near the elk and fired his terrible scent. The elk could not stand the smell and ran up the trail. Gray Fox waited until the leader and all the others had passed between the hills, and when the last one had gone by, he stepped behind them and fired his arrow with such force that it shot through the whole band of elk, killing them all. When Skunk arrived at the scene, he was so glad that he danced. He called all the people to come and help carry the meat home. He said to Gray Fox, "You must pack one elk and pack me too, for even though I'm dancing, I'm too tired to walk." Gray Fox was afraid of Skunk, so he did what he was told. He lifted a big elk on his shoulders, and Skunk climbed up on top. Skunk danced on the body of the elk all the way back to the village. Tired. Then Skunk told people to skin the elk and promised them some of the meat. They skinned the elk and cut the meat into strips and hung it up to dry. When they had done this, they asked him for their share. Skunk refused to give them any elk, but he told them, "Go eat acorn mush and pino." That's pine nut mush. He then turned as if he were going to shoot his scent, and everyone was afraid. Skunk was so greedy that he would not give any meat to anyone, not even his own wife, nor daughter, nor his son-in-law who killed it. He put it all away to dry for himself. Who does that sound like in our society, in our big village? The next day, he told Gray Fox to hunt again, and they did the same as before. When the elk were in the narrow pass between the hills, Gray Fox shot his arrow and killed them all, just as before. Then Skunk called the people to come and carry the elk home, and made Gray Fox carry one, and then he danced on top all the way back, just as before. Again, he told the people to skin the elk, and he would give them some meat for supper. But when they had skinned the elk and cut up the meat, he told them to eat acorns and pino. Go eat some acorns. You're not getting any meat. at the same time turning to frighten them. Skunk took all the meat to dry for himself, just as he had done before. The people were very angry, but they were afraid to do anything for fear Skunk would shoot his scent and kill them. They talked the matter over for a long time, and finally a wise man said, "What are we going to do? Must we hunt for him and pack his meat and skin it for him always and not get any? We had better kill him, but how can we do it so that he will not shoot his scent and kill us?" Then Two-Wick the Badger spoke. He said, "We can kill him." And while the Skunk was watching his meat so that no one would take any of it, Badger dug a hole and built a fire in it. Someone asked him why he had made a fire, and Badger replied, "Do you not know that Skunk is a great dancer and loves to dance? We will have fire in the hole and cover the top over with sticks and leaves and earth so he can't see anything. Then we will send for him to come and dance. And when he dances, he will break through and fall in, and we shall kill him." The people answered, "All right." When it was dark, they sent a messenger to Skunk. The messenger said, "Oh, you're a great dancer. We want to dance tonight, and we'll pay you well if you'll come." Skunk was pleased and answered, "All right, where shall I dance?" They took him to the place, and pointing to it said, "Right over there." Well, Skunk was very proud. He began to dance and sing. So everyone said, "Good, you're doing well. Keep on. You're doing just fine. Go ahead. You're surely the best dancer." And they flattered him, and he kept on and danced harder and harder, for he was proud, and he wanted to show what he could do. After a while, when Skunk was dancing hardest, the sticks broke, and he fell into the hole. The people were ready. They had a very big rock, which it had taken many people to bring. They were waiting, and the moment Skunk fell in, they pushed the rock over the hole. Then they climbed on top of it and held it down tight so that Skunk could not get out. The hot coals burnt Skunk's feet and made him dance. Ironically, this time, he was very angry and shot his scent so hard against the side of the hole that he pushed up mountains on that side. Then when he turned the other way and shot again, he pushed up mountains on the other side. These may be the walls of the Yosemite Valley. And after this, his scent was gone, and the coals burnt him and killed him. Then all the people were happy. Well, the next day they had a great feast, and the people ate all of the elk meat that they wanted. So I hope that this lesson sinks in. I'm reading this story every time because it's a beautiful story, very relevant metaphor, and also I want to sort of memorize it. So thank you again, everyone, for joining me for Volume 5 of Quarantine Bedtime Storytime. We'll be back again with some more nonfiction, fiction, and legends for you. Please share this with anyone who you think needs a story read to them, or anyone who is maybe stressing a little bit. I'm here for you reading these stories, and also I'll be there tonight in the ER taking care of everyone. So I'm hoping for the best health for everyone out there, and we'll see you next time.